Hello, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Luciano Saso. I'm the president of Unica, and it is a great pleasure for me to welcome you at this webinar on the role of universities in fostering high-quality citizen science, organized by Unica in cooperation with the University Nova de Lisboa. And today we are discussing a topic that is very important for Unica. Is a new topic. We did not had other events on citizen science before, but this is a theme that is included in the Unica and the City working group, which is a very important working group of Unica, in which we are going to discuss and debate about the different challenges that we actually have in our cities. Unica is a network of 53 universities based in 37 capital cities, and most of the Unica members, if not all, really have very close to their heart the civic engagement. We try to actually have solutions for the different urban challenges. So today we have a very good lineup of speakers. We will start with a general talk about the science in the city by Caroline Nevejan, and then we will go deeper with cases around citizen science, and then also we will try to share good practices from Unica universities in seeing how we can actually develop these themes at our universities and help again to develop citizen science in our cities. Before giving the floor to the chair of the Unica and the City Working Group, I would like to ask Vicky Sonka, the project manager from Unica, to give some important information to all participants.
Okay, welcome. Thank you very much for your kind interest. I'd like to give you some technical instructions regarding the webinar. First, please write your questions in the chat, and the Unica office, Unica staff will try to will collect them, and our speakers will answer them, hopefully all. Also, for your information, I'd like to mention that the event will be recorded, and after the event, it will be made available on the Unica website. And after the event, we will send you an evaluation survey, so please try to dedicate 2 or 3 minutes and fill it in, because your feedback matters to us. Thank you very much and enjoy the event.
Perfect. Thank you, Vicky. Now it is a great pleasure to give the floor to Professor João Mario Grillo, who is the chair of the Unica and the City Working Group, is a professor at Nova de Lisboa.
Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Luciano, and I join you in a very warm welcome to everybody that is being part of this webinar. It's the first webinar of this group, and I think with a very important subject that was proposed by José Moura, that is my colleague at Nova. And in this welcome, I like to stress particularly the speakers who are giving us a series of talks that are very important to consider the general and the global and the particular aspects of that new question: how can science empower the society in general? And I think the city is a main frame to begin considering very seriously that question. So welcome to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And I give the floor to José Moura, who is the organizer of this very well-planned webinar. Thank you. Thank you so much to everybody.
Welcome to everybody. My name is José Moura. It's a real pleasure to be with you, even though we are just in the internet, but this is a way we can be together, and it's important to be together. I would like also to complement a little bit what President of Unica and my colleague João Mário Grilo said before, there's a concept on this webinar. The concept is we feel nowadays that citizens are more and more interested on scientific topics that are performed at universities and research institutions, and these topics has to do with their lives. So it's a direct commitment with these topics. So citizen science is a clear movement nowadays, and it represents a process of participation of citizens in several activities that are generally on the grounds of science. Also, we should mention that the activity of citizens interested in science can also create big data. And this is very important for research units, for scientists, and for politicians. And we must be also aware that this area has grown significantly, and a large number of scientific articles created at universities refer already to citizen science contributions. And they are worldwide associations. So this is really an important movement. So what we through Unica, that is a network of universities of capitals of Europe, we just want to stress that universities has a very relevant role in reinforcing the relations between the urban actors and also the involved citizens. So what we are going to see today is the aim of this seminar is to have case studies that present experience on the active participation of citizens on scientific topics. I think we are very lucky to have a group of people that will cover a wide range of topics, and I look forward to see all the contributions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, José. You're a very active member of Unica, not only in this group. Thank you for coming up with this very good idea, but also I know you're very active in the Scholarly Communication Working Group, and I also invite some of the participants to look at the activities of the Scholarly Working Group of Unica. And now, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Professor Caroline Nevejan from the University of Amsterdam. She is the Chief Science Officer of the City of Amsterdam. She will explain herself the importance of this role, that it is present in Amsterdam, but not in all other Unica cities. And she will give a talk on city science for urban challenges.
Thank you very much, Luciano, for introducing me. And thank you for inviting me to speak in this very important context. As Luciano said, I come from Amsterdam, and 3 years ago, the municipality decided to embark with a person like me, where we have a professor from academia, who specifically takes up the role of connecting science with policymaking. I made a presentation with slides, so I will share my screen now. And then I will just guide you through what happened. Yeah, so why did the City of Amsterdam decide to do this? Which is quite amazing, but then it's not only the City of Amsterdam, you see actually this movement in many places. So what we are entering, because of data, José Maura was already referring to it, we were for a long time human being as measure of all things. Then we developed several methodologies in all fields of knowledge to measure human beings. But now, with the digitalization, we can actually measure humankind. We know how many people have COVID today, and we can be really precise. We can, even if we develop more of these applications, know the blood pressure of Amsterdam and compare it to Rome or to Warsaw, or even know the blood pressure of the whole world. So the interesting thing is, like TomTom in traffic shows us where a traffic jam is, we get an image, like we have a planetary view since we went to the moon. We now have an image of us as part of humankind. And that is a very big change in our life. It also puts up the question of how we organize trust. So this new experience, this new design paradigm, experience paradigm, leads to a new meta design paradigm. Do we design for high trust or for low trust? for participation, where citizen science is accelerating, or to surveillance. You also see transforming dynamics of power, which many people talk about in different fields, but overall you see that each of these old, middle and new forms happen all at the same time. And this affects our practice of science, also affects the research questions, how we do things, and how we valorize. Cities are, because of all these developments, not only anymore a territory, they are an infrastructure, they are distributed IT, and they have a social layer, which all happens in a city ecology. In this city ecology, and this is also very important for citizen science, I think many of the other speakers will talk about it, when you do research with citizen science, you are in this, what Ashung Fung from Kennedy School of Public Administration in Harvard calls the democratic cube. So between expert, engaged politicians and stakeholders is sort of the space where democracy happens. And you can imagine this as a three-dimensional space where some areas of, for example, it's more important that experts and stakeholders talk together. Other moments it's expert and politicians, and then it's again companies and citizens. So this is a cube in which you have to position also the research that you are doing, because you have to deal with each of those participants in the research you do. As Chief Science Officer, and this also resonates with the work of my former colleagues, is that policy research, to work well together, we need to add the design discipline. In medicine, they call it interventions. In engineering, it's often called design. But design in the broad sense, from 2D to 5D, so from graphic to product design, to time-based design, to strategic design. As a Chief Science Officer, I do four things. I gather all the research of the municipality. I publish this on a platform. I match research questions of a civil servant with a research question of a researcher in university. And this is very precise. So it's not like I do something with making bridges, for example. No, what do you do with making bridges? What is your interest exactly? And because I bring the exact interest of one civil servant to the exact interest to a researcher, I find that these are, the moment they meet, they forget about me, which is really very nice to see. So this is an image of the platform. We now have over 2,000 members in the platform. So these are civil servants and researchers in the universities. And we have different layers. You see a red layer on the right. That's a layer where only the researchers have access to. We offer project spaces for joint projects. And there's a whole layer on the internet for all the residents of the city. So everyone can see which research is being carried out in Amsterdam, for Amsterdam, through Amsterdam. In the matching, it's of course very complex because academia has very fixed formats and policy has other formats. So I organize a lot of significant encounters. Yeah, I know you're working on bridges. I know you are doing it. I just organize, we have lunch together. We do shared studies, experiments, living labs, PhD trajectories, shared proposals. And now I have a lot of academic workshops, as we call them. We now have 17 of them. If you want to engage with the city as a researcher, this affects the scientific process on all steps. Already the agenda setting changes when you work with the city, including citizens, but also civil servants, also companies, also societal organizations, schools. The research design is affected by it, the methodology you choose, how you execute the research, because you need to do a lot of talking to all the stakeholders. The analysis that you make, because the sources and the data that you gather will be more varied, more diverse. How you publish, how you monitor, how you evaluate, and go back to agenda setting. I have sometimes very interesting conversations with my colleagues where I say, it's very nice that you make a blueprint for energy transition, but we are a messy city. So it's about making blueprints for messy cities. And on the one hand, you have evidence-based policy making, which is for the for the board, for the city council. But on the other hand, we need a lot of solutions that are currently happening in cities that we cannot do without scientists engaging with us. Whether it's energy transition, climate change, huge inequality rise, children in schools who need more chances to thrive, development of circular economy, etc., etc. For this reason, we brought together about 35 cities, first 20 cities. Unica was also present from day one. And we have explored what is actually happening between science and the city in your place. So Warsaw was, for example, there. Berlin, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Paris, many cities. And it was very interesting that we found, here you see all the cities that were there, and we had a lot of the networks. So the 100 resilient cities, the Covenant of Mayors, the Euro cities were there, Unica was there, and then there were a lot of DGs from the European Commission. With all these people, we went through a whole trajectory. We had 3 conferences and 5 thematic workshops online. The 3 conferences really explored how do we work. So we were making portraits, explaining to each other how we work. And what's interesting that we found that in every city, there we are between 3, 5, 7 people who have specifically the task to make bridges between science and policy. And we found that in every of these cities, there was a bridge like that. And sometimes this bridge was positioned in the university, and sometimes this bridge was positioned at the municipality. And what was also very interesting, that we found that being these bridges together, that we have the same problems. We had very quick consensus, because we have problems between governance and finance of city science. Because it's, even though you're both public bodies, you both work with public money, the governance of the city is very different than the governance of the university. Also, learning and communication between these very complex, huge hierarchies and bureaucracies is not easy. And the need to invent a new paradigm for city science. We then said, let's try and see whether it really works if we bring cities together and we challenge the universities and the researchers and the European Commission to contribute to our challenges. So we choose circular economy, urban mobility, air quality, tech in the city, and mental health. And each of those challenges was taken up by one city. So Hamburg did circular economy, Cluj did mobility, Paris did air quality, Reggio Emilia did tech in the city, and Thessaloniki, with the support of Warsaw, did mental health. And we found actually that between research, policy, and design, there is a lot of potential benefits that we can have. And we feel that this should really be organized now in a much more professional manner than we did so far. So get out of all the incidents, the projects after project, but orchestrate a structural bridge between science and the university in every city or in every region of cities. And also in the Commission and in all the networks, we hope that specific groups are being installed that will take care of building these bridges, because as cities, we really need it. Thank you. And what's very nice, yesterday this report was sent to 3 commissioners of the European Union, and both the press release, the letter, and the report will be, as of today, on the Unica site. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline, for this excellent presentation. It was very, very interesting. And now we will have a few minutes of discussion directly with you, because we know that you are very busy today with another event. So you have to, unfortunately, to leave us in a few minutes. So I encourage all participants to ask immediately now on the chat any question they might have for you. First of all, I would like to ask you, how can we encourage more Unica universities to be engaged in this project and try to encourage to have in all, let's say, Unica cities? As I said, we have 37 capitals represented in Unica, to appoint a figure like yours, which I think is really very important for our cities and for the relationship between the universities and the city.
Well, what I find in my work is that cities work on urban challenges. So it's not, well, the politicians have opinions, but the challenge is really in the city. So we have huge inequality between children. We have obesitas as a problem. We need to do an energy transition. We have water problems because of climate change. So this is not a choice of subjects. This is the challenge that we are faced with. And when you work with the cities as a university, it would be very interesting if you take the time to listen to the problems of the city. Yeah? And sometimes they can be best elaborated upon by citizens, but usually you need a plethora of people. You need the crucial network. You need and the entrepreneurs and the citizens and the civil servants and the politicians. You need to embrace this complexity, which costs time, in which you cannot make publications. So I often am confronted with the fact that researchers says, yes, I like to work with the city, I like to have the data, but I have no time to do the communication. Well, that doesn't work. So this communication task, to orchestrate, to design well, to receive well, to feedback the results to the people who help you set the agenda, you have to make boundary objects so you can discuss with each other what the findings are. It really requires a different attitude. As a scientist, you become a servant to the community. And you are not deciding what you will take from the community as data upon which you will do your magic scientific trick to, put it in between brackets. But it's sometimes really shocking that researchers can go to communities, use residents as subjects, and to create their N. And then I think, yeah, who are we? And I find that the moment people dare to take the time and they dare to engage with the city, not only the citizens, but also the companies and the municipality, it's very rewarding. It's more complex, it takes more time, but your results are much better and can be used. Also, don't forget, usually cities have the best data because we have professional data gatherers. Our police people, our healthcare people, they are trained to create data. So usually as a city we have very good data that's interesting for researchers to work with. On the contrary, I say to my fellow civil servants, I say, listen, you forget the universities work internationally. They have the best methodology. You really want to engage with them, and it may take you more time. And often also people don't feel secure enough to talk to a professor. There are very levels of education in a municipality and in a neighborhood. So as a professor, you also have to be careful how you position yourself. So there's lots of opportunity, but it requires quite a shift in frame.
Thank you, Caroline. And another point for me is also very important in this big tragedy of COVID. We have to also to consider that a very serious economic crisis is coming up in Europe and in other places of the world. And in my opinion, of course, universities can play an important role in trying to reduce the damage and trying to, work. I saw that one of the main pillars of your project is a circular economy. I think there is a lot that university can do. Also in relationship to this interdisciplinary research, which I feel is not fully, exploited in Unica University, but also in other universities. So how can we encourage more interdisciplinary research, and work again with the cities? We are trying to debate that also in another webinar that we will have in October, together with the other network CESAR, in which we will try to, put on the floor other ideas. But if you can, elaborate a little bit on that, on possible interdisciplinary projects, maybe it can be useful for some of the participants online.
Yeah, I'm as a professor, my own research is very interdisciplinary. So I've been working in interdisciplinary context for over 30 years. And I think the biggest thing you have to realize is that when you work interdisciplinary, you have to orchestrate in time. It's a time, yeah? So there's a moment that every discipline has its time to contribute. So you don't do all the time everything with everybody. There is a moment you need to talk, there's a moment you need to make, there's a moment you need to share, there's a moment you need to not share. So the orchestration of the process is very important. I think in the hierarchy of universities sometimes really prevents interdisciplinarity. Yeah, I made this cahier, Values for Survival, Paul Wouters, who's a colleague from Leiden University. He made a beautiful map about citation index, how people cite each other's disciplines. And it's quite shocking that the world that is least interdisciplinary at the moment is really the sciences. Because in a municipality, you cannot not be interdisciplinary. And as a doctor in a hospital, you know, you are also dependent on the cleaner, because if they don't clean the operation room well, you will get a bad operation. But there's a lot of areas in the sciences where you can really, you don't have this confrontation. And I think it would be very interesting to find out how to do it. I know as a researcher myself, as a principal investigator, I know how to orchestrate. But then I am like a filmmaker, I am the director of the research. I'm really the principal investigator. And it's very hard to do that, and also very hard for people to participate, because colleagues often don't understand. It takes more time, it's more messy. Results also, you know, to get your results published in journals, much harder if you work interdisciplinary.
Thank you, Caroline. I don't know if there is another question from Jose or other panelists.
Have any question?
No, okay.